Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I am here to discuss my Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth pre-release. This is the new and first draft set for Universes Beyond, and this is the pre-release pack that you get. It's pretty standard. When you rip off the side though, they started adding this text, and this has one ring to rule them all, which is, if you know anything about Lord of the Rings, is one of the phrases that is commonly used to associate with the series. Looks like the front has some version of a ring wraith, maybe the Witch King of Angmar, possibly. And then when you open up, you get a nice little bit of text here. And I've popped these up. These are cardboard tokens, as they've been doing, and you have cardboard counters here that you can use in the game if you need them. Here is the deck box that it comes with the Frodo, I think, Golem ring art here. Inside you get a spin down counter with some neat little Tolkien-esque fonts for the numbers and the ring right there. You also get a quick guide to how to build a pre-release deck, a sealed deck, and so it's the same thing that you've seen in these for a long time, but pretty helpful. Then on the back, just a little quote and art from Lord of the Rings. There's a card divider in here, the beautiful Hobbit house. You also get a promo pack, which will include a code for Arena to get you 6 packs. I've already redeemed this particular code. And then you get your random promo rare or mythic, and I got the Rangers of Ilithian, as well as one legendary promo as well. You are not allowed to use this one in the pre-release game, but you are allowed to use this one in the pre-release game. And then we have one ring token, which is perforated, so you can rip it off and use it that way if you want. On the back is some reminder text as to what the ring tempting you is about in terms of the mechanic. So this is everything I opened. I was predisposed to playing white just because I had the most cards in white, and then everything else was kind of even. So I ended up looking at my multicolor cards to help me decide which way I ought to go. And I was leaning towards white with using the Denethor, King of the Oathbreakers, and Prince Imrahil the Fair as an option, and maybe splashing. And I wanted to see if I can make white and blue work, especially because the Rangers of Ilithian is quite a strong card, being able to steal one of your opponent's creatures. And so that was one of the decks that I tried, and I also considered maybe splashing a little and playing a splash into multiple colors using the Shire Terrace and the Inherited Envelope, and maybe also the Shire Scarecrow if necessary, to maybe play some sort of Esper deck with Mouth of Sauron, Prince Imrahil the Fair, and the King of the Oathbreakers and Denethor as one option. And then I also explored the red-green option with Strider and Gimli, but Gimli turns out that he's not especially good in a seal deck because it's hard to trigger him, and Strider is generally strong, but I found that a lot of the red cards didn't have internal synergy, and the green cards didn't have a lot of internal synergy. And even though there was a decent number of green cards, many of them are cards that you're not excited to be playing, like the Elven Farsight. I mean, which is a good card, don't get me wrong, but it's just not especially the kind of card that you can use to win the game. And so between the two of them, I just couldn't put together a deck that made me feel like I was going to be winning a lot, even with a few strong cards in the mix. So it was really down to the Esper colors that I was trying to fix and put together. And I tried to really build an Esper deck, but I found that the power level boost by building Esper wasn't strong enough. And in the end, I was really looking at a blue and white deck, but that felt like I had to play a few weaker cards in order to make it work, because outside of the Rangers of Ilithian and maybe Goldberry, the deck seemed a little bit on the weaker side. Whereas black, I think the color overall was a lot stronger just because it had so much removal in it, and it had some pretty strong cards, including Oath of the Grey Host and Gothmog Morgul Lieutenant, that made me want to play a black and white deck and not worry about splashing a third color. I also had Mount Doom as my mythic rare, and it's a strong card, but I didn't have any legendary artifacts to activate its Wrath ability, and the pinging ability probably isn't worth playing these two colors, especially since both are a little bit on the weaker side in terms of their overall curve and ability to hold the game together. And so I built a black and white deck, throwing in the King of the Oathbreakers and Denethor over here, and didn't splash anything at all. So this is the deck that I built. As you can see, I went hard on the removal here, and then I put, I think, the best cards that I could put together here. There is a combo relationship between Denethor and Faramir, which is appropriate considering their relationship. And other than that, we're just trying to play the best cards that we can. We have a little bit of ring synergies as well as a little bit of synergies for legendary permanents, but this is not to the level of, say, a draft deck, and the only rare that I'm playing is the King of the Oathbreakers here. And otherwise, it's a pretty simple deck. You're just trying to get in there, maybe take some advantage of making some of your weaker creatures, whether it's the Esquire, the Nimble Hobbit, or maybe a token, the Ringbearer, and then removing your opponent's best creatures and trying to win. And then hoping that between your little flyers, your Ringbearers, and maybe possibly getting the Denethor Faramir combo out, you can eke out a win. So then I went to games with this deck. In the very first match, I was up against a black and white deck that was splashing blue for a couple strong cards, and that was possibly the deck that I was going to build as well. In the first game, I won mostly because I was able to go wide while my opponent was a little slowed down on mana. In the second game, I also mulliganed. Again, both of us were flooded for a while, and ultimately I just drew out of my flood a little bit better than my opponent did, and so I won the first match like that. My second match was up against a black-green deck, and I think that we were doing pretty well overall, except I started to flood and just drew a whole bunch of lands, and my opponent drew more spells than me and built a better board and eventually won on that ground. I mulliganed that one as well, going down to 6, because, you know, sometimes you draw pretty bad opening hands. And then the next game, I also had to mulligan again to 6, because, again, I drew very poorly. And my opponent kind of rode that card advantage through all the way to the end of the game. Just had better stuff than me, and I was drawing weak cards, my opponent was drawing strong cards, and couldn't hold that one together and lost. So now I was 1-1 for my matches. In my next match, I was up against a red-black player, and this was the first game, and it was also the first game that I didn't have to mulligan anything. Unfortunately, my opponent had some pretty strong cards and generally was able to draw more spells than I was, and so he was able to run me over, and I lost. And then in the second game, I also had to mulligan again, so I mulliganed 5 of my 6 games due to, you know, poor lands, and I didn't keep a great hand, and unfortunately I was slow and I flooded, and so I wasn't able to play much, and by the time I was able to recover and start playing cards, my opponent already had built a big board with a whole lot of triggers and effects going on, and so I just lost that one. Probably the worst, not having even been able to swing at my opponent once before I lost. And that was it. 3 matches in a row. I lost 2 and 1, but at Emerald Knights, they have a flat prize structure, so I didn't walk away with nothing. They gave me 2 set boosters for Lord of the Rings, which is nice right there. They also gave everybody who played all the way through to the end a promo card. So I got a promo Acidic Slime with a foil stamp of the year that it was introduced. And so that's a nice little extra that you got for playing Lord of the Rings. What did I think of the set? Well, there's some interesting elements to the set, and I felt that in some ways the set was a little bit simpler than usual, despite the fact that this one isn't going into standard like the D&D set. But in a lot of ways, I felt that it was an analog to the D&D set in that it was also a Universes Beyond, and then the mechanics here aren't terribly complicated, aside from the ring. But even the ring itself isn't too hard to figure out what's going on, even if the rules are a little bit wonky in order to make it work. And so I found this set to be a little bit straightforward for my liking, coming off of March of the Machine, which was a ton of fun. And then there was the matter of the legends. There's so many versions of each legend, and it kind of dilutes the fun of opening and playing one of the legends, because you might have one version of Peregrine Took, but then you have another version of Peregrine Took, or Frodo, or Gandalf, or and so forth. And I understand part of that is because you want the players to be able to play with the major characters from the book. And it's not fun if you're not playing with one of the major characters. You just end up, just playing some orcs or ents or elves or hobbits or whatever it might be. And so I understand why they did that, but it doesn't feel exactly right. And in terms of the general pre-release, I found that it is just what you've come to expect from Wizards, and also what I've come to expect from Emerald Knights. It's no frills, there's nothing extra. It's just the sealed deck. You play the sealed deck, and that is it. And you hope that the contents of the sealed deck are nice enough to have you enjoy that. And I felt like the games were okay. I mean, I think I could have had a better time if I didn't have to mulligan almost every single one of my hands and then lose to Flood or Mana Screw. So those are just not fun situations at Magic the Gathering. And then when the games were working, I think that they were fun. There are some interesting synergies that can be exploited. Unfortunately, I never once got to play Faramir. I don't even think I drew Faramir in the entire game. And so I never got to get the Denethor and Faramir combo going. So that was really unfortunate as well. It is kind of fun to see Lord of the Rings represented in Magic. I do remember a long time ago designing a few cards here and there that were bringing the Lord of the Rings characters into Magic and wondering what it would be like for them to be in there. And so that was fun back then. And then now to have the two merge together, as impossible as it sounded back then, is kind of fun. But I also don't know how I feel about Universes Beyond overall, even though I do like Lord of the Rings in Magic, because it has magic, it has wizards, it has the fantasy themes that Magic the Gathering has embraced in large part due to Lord of the Rings. But I kind of want to play Magic as Magic, not as these Universes Beyond things. And so I have kind of mixed feelings about this set. And the pre-release experience is just the same no frills sealed deck experience that is helped a little bit at Emerald Knights because you get the promo card. And Wizards did give you a special die here that didn't look like all of their other spin downs, which is something, throwing in the extra promo card also helps, but it's not exciting. And so in the end, I don't know that I would say that the Lord of the Rings Tales of the Middle-earth pre-release is something that you had to have gone to. It is fun to crack the packs and see the cards for the first time and then be able to play some Magic with them. But the games that I played weren't my favorite games of Magic, and I kind of wish that with a set that's so expensive, the packs and the pre-release is more expensive than the average pre-release, I would have hoped that it would have been a little bit more fun and a little bit more special. As it was still fun. I played Magic Gathering for a few hours, and I generally tend to enjoy that unless the set is really bad. So that is my basic thoughts for Lord of the Rings Tales of the Middle-earth pre-release. If you went to pre-release, let me know how it went in the comments below. Share your experience with us. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.